The second to last week before the election campaign. 2/3 of the campaign is now done. The final push to election day is now on in earnest. Pre-poll voting is already underway from this morning and right through till Saturday week. Hundreds of thousands of people are going to be voting every day. So if you haven't won people over now, you are losing votes as we speak. That's the bad news for the government, because despite Anthony Albanese's litany of errors, his stumbles, even his denials about his stuff-ups, and despite the substance of the election debate, such as it is, being on the government's preferred turf of economic management and national security, the dial isn't shifting, according to Newspoll. In fact, the tiny movement, a statistically almost meaningless shift of 1 point for each party's primary vote, has gone in divergent directions, widening the gap. This has pushed the two-party preferred vote out to a bigger gap, with the coalition now on 46% and Labor on 54%. Scott Morrison is still preferred Prime Minister, but the voting intentions for the coalition are just not there. They're at least 5 points below where they need to be in primary vote terms. And frankly, given the campaign we've had, which has been as bad as anyone could have imagined for Albanese, Labor is holding up fine. No doubt they were helped by the interest rate rise last week. However unfair or illogical that is, there's no doubt it's a cost of living hit, and some will have blamed that on the government. This all tends to suggest that what we've been seeing is what we're going to get. No great enthusiasm for Labor, but an electorate that's over the government and prepared to roll the dice and see what we get. Perhaps a Labor majority government, or perhaps more likely a minority government in cahoots with the Greens and other independents. Either way, this is a big risk for this country right now. In these perilous and uncertain times, we need strong economic management, and we also need strength on defence and foreign affairs. But we're likely to get a government that sees climate change as the big issue. They'll focus on adding to our economic pain and our security vulnerability by focusing on Australian climate policies that, wait for it, cannot have any impact on the climate. That's the simple and incontestable fact that just leaves me speechless about these climate alarmists, whether they're Labor Party MPs, Greens or fake independents. It's the sheer idiocy of focusing on policies that can have no discernible impact on the issue that they say is a grave threat. No one party or candidate is proposing a climate policy, and no matter how radical or how expensive or ruinous it'll be to our economy, none of them are or can propose a policy that will actually have any impact on our climate. Their policies cannot and will not deliver more rain or less, whichever they want, or lower temperatures or less drought or less dangerous bushfires. Whatever they say or do, their policies can't change any of that, and that's just the scientific reality, as confirmed by the chief scientist some years back. If you want to lower global emissions and therefore maybe have some influence on climate, you have to force dramatic changes in China, in India, in Indonesia, and many other countries. So how dumb is it to pretend otherwise in our political debate? How insane is it to propose policies that will cost a bomb but do nothing for us, achieve nothing? I don't understand why anybody supports this stuff, whether they're revolutionary teenage protesters or wealthy people with sort of post-material sensibilities. Who would stake their whole political position and cast their vote according to policies that can't actually work? It's all about virtue signalling. It's all about making a gesture. And of course, the practical effect can only be bad for all of us. Still, as I said months ago and at the outset of this campaign, the Liberals have only got themselves to blame for this. When they signed up to net zero by 2050, they gave up the fight for rational policy over political gestures. They gave up the fight for science-based policy rather than emotionally driven policies. They gave up the fight for our economy over global virtue signalling. And of course, they robbed themselves of a chance to have a proper debate about a central issue at this election. Instead, in a country that's now doing more than just about any other nation on the planet to reduce emissions, we might soon have a government determined to do even more, and quickly if it needs to please the Greens. None of this will change the global climate because we can only fiddle with just over 1% of global emissions, which are rising by much larger proportions elsewhere. But we will find out what all this can do to our country, our economy, our energy reliability and affordability. We might have to learn about all this the hard way.